Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could teach the gullible to never be so comfortable with lies they eat like comfort food? To disregard the bogus claims and pseudoscientific claims. Can you imagine just how much indeed the world would change? No more political predators playing on the populace with ilkas and plots to shift and kill metropolis. No more villains with the title in the Bible holding phony temper rifles like the stuff they teach is vital. Imagine it was normal to have to prove a claim you make. If folks really feel ashamed to express some content that was fake, it's not to say we never make mistakes. It's just to say we go out of our way to show the evidence it takes.
Remain skeptical while you travel the road. The reason stay strapped with logic and fast. That's what it is, yo. Keep reality intact to help the truth grow. Question every claim, especially the ones you believe in. Remain skeptical while you travel the road. The reason.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Road to Reason, the Skeptic's Guide to the 21st Century.
Sorry for stepping on your lines there, but good afternoon. I'm Tiffany Harding.
I'm Stephanie Gatormson. I think we're going to start off with some announcements, and I think you have the first and best one.
Yes, and I'm super duper excited about this. I went to the one in 2012, and there's going to be another Reason Rally 2016. The date was decided this week, June 4th. Super excited, a week before my birthday. And there's already a great lineup of speakers, including the Science Babe. You have Paul Provenza, Eugenie Scott, Cara Santa Maria, Kelly Carlin, James, the amazing Randy, and Richard Dawkins, who was there last time I saw him speak, and it's just amazing. Anyway, this event is absolutely free, and for more information, sign up, email updates, you can go to reasonrally.org.
Awesome, thank you. I can't wait to go to that.
No,
it's
me
going to be
neither.
so much fun. I didn't go to the first one.
Oh
but
my God.
I can't wait for this.
My face hurt at the end of the day from smiling so much.
Good.
Seriously, it was probably the happiest I had been in a long time.
That's the best kind. Speaking of things coming up, we have ApostaCon coming up this weekend, September 18th through the 20th. And speaking of amazing speakers, this is going to be a fairly magical conference, as Penn and Teller are going to be there.
It'll be
doing some
magic, get it?
They are.
Sorry.
They're going to be doing an awesome little talk. Not only will yours truly be speaking at ApostaCon, but we also have the organizer and executive director of Recovering from Religion, Sarah Moorhead. Love Sarah. Author Daniel Errol. President and CEO of the Richard Dawkins Foundation, Robin Blumner. We also have bloggers Neil Carter and JT Eberhard. Host of Atheist Experience and the YouTube channel Atheist Debates, Matt Dillahunty, one of my favorite people ever to exist.
Right on.
Host of Road to Reason and president of the Hispanic American Freethinkers, David Tamayo. I can't wait to see what he's going to be talking about. Host of Dogma Debate, who was on here a couple weeks ago, David Smalley.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't there for that one.
Folk singer Shelley Siegel, and activist Alex with an I, Jules, poet Victor Harris, author David Fitzgerald, and there's just so much more that's going to be there. I know I just listed off a lot of the speakers, but there's just so much more to be there. If you have the ability to go and you really want tickets, you can pick up that stuff at apostacon.org.
I mean, what else are you going to do for a weekend in Dallas?
Exactly.
Besides go to ApostaCon. I would love to be there. Unfortunately, I can't make it, but it would be any kind of gathering or festival for skeptics, non-believers, and Pastafarians. Would be perfect.
And finally, the Richard Dawkins Foundation has an announcement. We are looking for volunteers. I say we because I'm the operations director of the Richard Dawkins Foundation. And what we're looking for are speakers who are fluent in Arabic, Urdu, Spanish, Russian, German, Indonesian, basically anything. Those
French, Italian, poppy seed ranch. I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
But any languages really, but we're trying to translate our YouTube videos with subtitles in several languages. So if you or someone you know speaks a language other than English, most especially the ones we just mentioned, please do us a favor and email our program director, Dave Chervis, at dave@richarddawkins.net.
And it's really important to get, especially when I'm thinking about it, to get those languages, countries where watching the video like that is almost impossible.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so we have to make the content in this country or English-speaking countries and just have it translated over. So if you can, help us out.
That would be fantastic. And a lot of the videos are atheist and science-based, so it will help us spread that message to, like Tiffany said, countries that don't necessarily have that ability.
No, it's just pretty scary, the rest of the world, if I can be honest with you. I mean, seriously.
Tiffany, I think you have a joke for us.
Okay. So, I'm sorry. I'm gonna wind myself up. All right, hear me out. All right, I heard this joke. A comedian said it, and I want to share it with you. So, okay. You have Jesus, and he's at the Last Supper, and everybody's eating, and they're about to get the check or whatever happened at the end of that. And Jesus stands up, and he silences everyone, and he says, at the end of the night, one of you will betray me. And everybody's like, oh, I can't believe we're going to be betrayed. And so Paul walks up to him. He's like, is it me, Jesus? Is it me, Jesus? Am I going to be the one to betray you? And Jesus says, no, my son, you will not be the one to betray me. And then John walks up. He's like, is it me, Jesus? Is it me, Jesus? Am I going to be the one to betray you? And Jesus is like, no, John, it is not you. You will not be the one to betray me. And then Judas walks up. He's like, is it me, Jesus? Is it me, Jesus? Am I going to be the one to betray you? And Jesus is like, is it me, Jesus? Is it me, Jesus? Am I going to be the one to betray you?
I love that joke.
Thank you
so much. I really do.
Oh, it's one of my favorite stories. And so, the hard part is trying to get yourself not to laugh as you're about to tell the joke, because that just makes you look like an amateur, but I guess I am. So, there you go.
Well, thanks.
No problem.
That was awesome.
No problem.
A little bit of change pace. I did want to tell you about some research coming out of Guyana, or Guinea. I think it's Guinea. Let's go with Guinea. It's published in The Lancet, and the study suggests that there is a new, safe Ebola vaccine. How cool is that?
That would be very cool.
We've been trying to cure Ebola for a long time, and because of the recent outbreak, it's kind of moved itself into the forefront of the news recently. And the study was sponsored by the World Health Organization.
Right.
But what's so great about this is that they have found it to be extremely effective. And all I can say is go science, right?
Absolutely.
Right. Because science wins all the winning there is to win in the history of win.
I mean, and it's not like it's not like it's even a competition between religion and science anymore. You can pray for as long as you want. If you get Ebola, your insides are still going to melt and you're going to die. But if we get this vaccine out, it'll work. And speaking of science, we were discussing who was going to be the skeptic of the week this week, right? And so we decided it was either going to be Our Lady Kim Davis or that new hominid species they discovered. So which one?
We went with the armored skeptic.
We went with the oh yeah, that's right. We did go with the armored skeptic. He did a video this week. It was a follow-up to the one he did where he went to the Field Museum and he met up with Megan Fox. Not Transformers Megan Fox.
Not Fox News Megan Fox.
No.
Megan Fox of internet fame, who went to the Field Museum, who couldn't understand eukaryotic cells.
Yeah.
And quite a bit of other things. Thought that dragons existed simply because her daughter said that a skull was a dragon.
She's a homeschooling mom, so that means she's actually educating people, okay? She doesn't know what eukaryotic cells mean. She thinks that science is made up, or they don't know. They don't know. That's what she says. So anyway, in Armored Skeptic's latest video, he went to the Creation Museum where she went and could not stop gushing about everything she saw there. You know, dragons was dragons, and they was chilling with Adam and Eve.
Of course. Dinosaurs were everywhere.
Dinosaurs were everywhere, and they all ate plants.
All plant eaters.
Until sin entered the world. But with the coming back to discovering new species and about how she said the one thing that gets me, she keeps going, we have an alternative. It's another opinion. You know, lady, it's not an opinion. Science is science. Right? It doesn't matter if you need an alternative idea of where life comes from.
And I think in this first video we said we could fill so many museums with all the maybes that there are. The difference is, though, that these maybes don't have any evidence for them, which is why we don't teach them and why we don't tout them as discoveries.
If you had one source for your book. You're not going to get your PhD. You know.
One more joke before we have to go to break.
Okay, one more joke.
What do you call a book club that only reads one book?
I don't know. What do you call it?
Church.
That. Okay. All right. I quit. Bye. I'm done.
So, having said that, we have to jump to a quick break. We're going to do they're going to give you some public service announcements, I think they're called.
I'm going to go jump off a building.
Hey, no, you stay here. She'll be here, don't worry, when you get back.
Good.
Homemade noodles. Marty, stop it. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. It reminds me, I've been thinking maybe we should try a new form of birth control. I heard about this one, it's called the IUD, intrauterine device. Or we could try the patch on your arm. Actually, I think that one goes in your butt.
Bedsider.org has birth control information and a lot more. And it's...
What do you think then? Arm or the butt?
There's a lot of tree branches and dry brush over here. We should probably move the bonfire over there.
I'm guessing Smokey liked that idea.
This is Richard Dawkins. Doing commercials is unfamiliar territory for me, but I'm inviting you to watch Road to Reason, a skeptic's guide to the 21st century, on Fairfax Public Access every Sunday. Each week the hosts tackle wishful thinking, religion, pseudoscience, and the harm they cause, with a combination of facts, humor, and community involvement. They challenge believers to defend their faith and give you, the skeptic, a voice. With live call-ins for viewers and streaming on the World Wide Web, there's never a dull moment. Don't wait. Look at them now on Facebook and YouTube, and remember to watch Road to Reason, a skeptic's guide to the 21st century, or there'll be hell to pay.
You want to know something really liberating about critical thinking? It allows you to drop all your pretenses. As a critical thinker, there's a recognition that there are no more powerful words in the English language than "I don't know." It's pretty awesome, actually. Admitting you don't know shouldn't be viewed as an admission of weakness or insecurity. It's the only place where real learning and growth begin. Did you ever wonder what it is about being a child that makes life so much fun? What is it that kids have that we lose as we grow up? It's their sense of wonder and delight at discovering things. They know they don't know, and they can't wait to find out. They pester everyone with questions because they want to know everything. Unfortunately, as we get older, that sense of wonder pretty much gets beaten out of us. Socially, we're taught by our peers almost as soon as we start making friends that ignorance is not bliss. The name-calling, the ridicule, and being laughed at soon convince us that it's better to just make things up instead of admitting that we don't know. We get into this habit and pretty soon can even convince ourselves that we're experts in areas we know almost nothing about. We walk around wearing this pretense of knowledge like body armor, but really it's as thin as tissue paper because we know anyone, anywhere could find out what a fraud we are at any moment. Do you like living like that? Because I don't. And here's the thing, there's nothing wrong with not knowing. The truth is that saying "I don't know" is not any indication that you're a moron or lacking in any kind of intelligence. It just means you never learned or can't remember something. We are born not knowing, and it's the quest for knowledge and experience that keeps life fresh and keeps us alive. Some of the most miserable, hateful, and spiteful people I've ever known have been the ones who thought they knew exactly what was going on and didn't have anything more to learn. Don't try to tell them anything, they've got it all figured out. Those aren't the people who are changing the world for the better. They aren't even trying. It's those who want to learn, who want to discover, and want to grow. Those are the people upon whom we all depend to make the next big discoveries and take the next leap forward. They are the scientists, the inventors, the philosophers, and the leaders who can take our species to the next level in our evolution. We all have it in us to learn and grow. It starts with an honest appraisal of what we do know, what we are certain of, and being strong enough to admit that we have some more learning to do. I love critical thinking for teaching me this. I can't wait to learn more.
Welcome back, heathens. I hope you enjoyed all of the public service announcements.
Welcome back.
Fantastic things. So this week, we're going to be talking about religious rituals. How fun is that?
It is very fun. It's repetitive and kind of hypnotic. That's why I think religious rituals are for.
Oh, I get it. That was a play on the joke.
It was a play on a joke.
Ooh.
No, but we're just getting into the discussion of religious rituals and why they're necessary. I think they're necessary for religion to keep going.
Sure.
You know, and one of the reasons I started out as a little skeptic, and how I eventually left religion was because of a religious ritual, and it was my own baptism. So yeah, I was brought up in AME, which is African Methodist Episcopal Church,
okay.
right? And it's a predominantly black church, and I think it runs off of the Episcopalian, or it runs off of the Methodist model. I'm not sure how it goes, but it's kind of complicated. So you don't get baptized when you're young. You get baptized when you're 11, 12 years old. And so it was an event, right? Before I get into my event, let's talk about, we have somebody who is going to talk to us about rituals and some of the more interesting rituals.
Yeah, because we have the Hajj.
Steph?
We have the Hajj coming up.
Yeah, we have the Hajj coming. Well, actually, it's going on right now, I think.
But that's not even the weirdest thing.
No.
So we wanted to talk to God about this, but he wasn't available.
Yeah.
You see, because he doesn't exist.
And he has to answer so many questions.
Yeah. So instead, we got his liaison, Mr. Deity, to answer some questions for us about religious rituals, specifically as they pertain to the Mormon Church, one of the more interesting places or one of the most interesting religions on the planet. So if we can welcome in Mr. Deity. Hi, Brian. How's it going?
Good. How are you guys?
Doing well. How are you?
Hanging low.
Excellent. Thanks.
Easy breezy.
So I wanted to ask you, since you're a self-proclaimed ex-Mormon yourself,
You got to use my term, former Mormon, foreman. It's so efficient.
Fantastic. I love it. That's a good word.
Oh, I am done.
What do you think is the strangest of all the Mormon rituals that you experienced or know about?
Well, it's not really close. I mean, there's a temple ceremony that you go through to get your endowment, whatever that means.
No, I heard about that. Yeah.
It's probably, I would imagine it takes between 2 and 3 hours. It's taken longer if you watch the live version. If you go to the live show, which you can do or at least you could at the time that I was still a Mormon, in Salt Lake, I think that took me over 4 hours. It was ridiculously long.
When you say show, you literally mean like a show, right?
Yeah, there are actors portraying Adam and Eve and God and Jesus and Satan, Lucifer. And, most people around the world, almost everyone around the world, if you're Mormon, you go see it in a temple, and it's actually a movie now. But originally, when they started doing it back in the 19th century, it was actors acting out these parts, and you learn special different things about the creation and about Adam and Eve, and you get all of your what are called tokens and passwords, and of course that's where you learn about the secret handshake, which is the best, really.
Stop it. He's talking about tokens and passwords and handshakes. And actors dressed up like. I can't even. I'm sorry.
For the handshake, what do you mean that there's a special secret handshake?
There's a secret handshake, and no one's really ever been able to explain to me exactly when this handshake is going to come into play. I mean, I don't know when you go to heaven, I guess when you die, there's someone there who, if you can give them the secret handshake, you get into the better clubs. I don't know how that works. It's never really explained to you, but apparently you have to know the secret handshake because God, everything that God does is very lowbrow. I mean, it's not like he could just use his all-knowingness and say, oh yeah, this is Brian, he's one of ours, come on in. It's you got to have somebody there because God's very busy. He can't just, handle these things on his own. So I guess there's someone at the pearly gates who says, you got the secret handshake? And if you do, you get into the better clubs, you get into the better restaurants, you go into the 4- and 5-star hotels, not the little crappy, you're not going to be hanging out in a Motel 6, I guess, if you know the secret handshake.
See, now I wanted to ask about, basically to get the endowment, you have to watch a video on like a regular Mormon church. You have to watch a video that tells a story, right? So literally...
Well, no, it's not in... You can't do this at a regular Mormon church. You have to go into a temple, and there's a very... it's quite a task to get what's called a temple recommend. You have to, you have to pay a full tithing, which, by the way, no one ever explains to you whether that's on your gross or on your net. I guess you get to decide that yourself. But it's a full 10% of your income. You have to be a member in good standing. You have to be, if you're single, you can't be sexually active. If you're married, you can't be fooling around. There's a lot of things. You have to obey the word of wisdom, which is all the Mormon dietary laws. And you do an interview and you get your temple recommend, and then you can go into the temple. And at first there's something called before you get your endowment, there's something called the washing and anointing, where they ritualistically wash the various parts of your body, giving a ritualistic thing. We bless your arms and hands that you may do this and you may do that. And they repeat the thing, but with oil now, which is sanctified by somebody, Bob. I think the guy's name is Bob. And you go through and do that whole thing again, and they say the same things. And we're all laughing, but these people take this very seriously, and it's very, deeply, profoundly meaningful to these people. Which is ironic because it's basically just, stuff that Joseph Smith ripped off from the Masons.
Yeah.
He was a Mason, and as were almost all of the heads of the church at the beginning, and he stole all of this. And, when I was growing up, there was all kinds of talk about, the Masons went all the way back to the building of, Solomon's temple and blah, 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 which is complete BS. The Masons didn't, they're a much later invention. But these are the things that Mormons are told to make them think that what they're doing has some, profound connection to the people of Israel some 2,500 years ago.
Yeah. Now, at the beginning of, I guess, not the universe, but the beginning of Earth, wasn't there somewhat of a ritual that they went through to kind of vote in who was going to be the savior of this planet?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
I saw.
Well, in Mormon theology, you really have to explain a lot, because Mormonism is so completely different from any other religion, which is why I say Mormons aren't Christians, because it's such a completely different religion on every level, not the least of which is the fact that they worship a totally different God than Christians have worshipped for the last 2,000 years. He's a former dude like us, and like me, and he's and I do have to be specific in that, because it really is a guy thing. There is, according to Mormons, a mother in heaven, or many, many more mothers in heaven, depending on who you talk to. God might have a bazillion wives.
With all the spirit children, right?
He and the wives had spirit children, and that's what we were before we came to this earth. And then, we were all, there was a plan for us to come down to an earth like this and get bodies and learn to walk by faith and all that blah, 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 blah. But there was one guy who said, why should we have to do all that? Let's just save everybody outright, not have him have to go through all of that. And his name was Lucifer. He was a bad guy. And Jesus' idea was to give everybody their freedom and let them choose what they wanted to do, whether they wanted to be saved or not. And this is the good guy, by the way. So a lot of us, end up in a not so pleasant place. We end up in the Motel 6 because we didn't learn the secret handshake. So there was kind of a vote. Who do you want to go with? And 2/3 went with Jesus because he had the better hair. People don't know that. But he had the better hair. He was a little more charismatic. And a third went with Lucifer. And, so the rest, all of us who went with Jesus, we get to come down to earth and suffer and die for the most part. We're living in a golden age where we get to live a while. And we don't have to worry about being eaten by, some animal or the other tribe across the river.
Right. So I wanted to.
So we've got it pretty good. We lucked out on that one. But, the rest of them went with Lucifer or in Mormon theology, there used to be the idea that a good portion of those who who were in the middle on this, came down and became black people.
Yay!
That was the justification. That was the justification for keeping blacks out of the Mormon priesthood for 150 years.
I'm a Lamanite.
So it's really wacky theology. It's just out there.
So tell me if this is true or not. Isn't it so that Mormons believe that their goal on Earth is to ascend to godhood and get their own planet and get their own spirit children made with endless celestial sex? Is that how that works?
Yes,
awesome.
yes. I just did one of my other shows is called The Way of the Mister.
Yes.
And that's where I talk more directly to the camera about things like this. And I just did one called The God Delusion, small g, God. Because in Mormon theology, our God used to be a man, and he ascended to godhood. He was exalted to godhood, and that is supposedly what we will all be doing if we get the secret handshake. So it's really about the handshake. It's all about the handshake. You don't get the secret handshake, you're pretty much screwed.
Right, so I wanted to ask you about baptism, because baptism is what it started to turn me from religion. I had my hair done that day, brand new dress, and then they dunked me all the way down in water, ruined everything, and I'm standing there soaking wet, and all these adults and other kids are soaking wet too, and I'm like, this is dumb, right? But it seems like every Christian sect has some form of baptism, some kind of rebirthing ritual. Now, I know that Mormonism does it. So Joseph Smith sort of borrowed that one mystical thing from Christianity, and then you have the Masons and da-da-da. They made it their own? Or what?
Well, Joseph Smith was kind of you got to give him credit, because apparently he was one of the most charismatic people probably ever to live. He could turn people who hated him around in 20 minutes.
Well, him and L. Ron Hubbard,
within meeting him. And he was a creative genius. I mean, I think there's a lot to be said for something that this guy came up with. Now, it's BS galore, but it's very inventive, very creative. I think he had a lot of interesting ideas about, if you look at religion over the years, there is this kind of progression from, we start out and we're dirt, and, we're worth nothing, and then we're worth enough for God to come down and turn into a man and suffer and die for us. And then Joseph takes it to the next level, where we're not only worthy of God suffering and dying for us, but we're worthy of godhood. And it's kind of a natural progression, I think, of thought and how we end up seeing ourselves over the millennia as we start to grasp more and more and understand more about the universe and all that kind of stuff. But the baptism, the way Mormons do baptism, is we wait till 8 years old. 8 is the age of accountability. That goes back to how many people survived the ark. There were 8 people who were on the ark, and that was a baptism of the earth, by the way. Mormons talk about it in those terms. The flood, the genocide, as I like to call it.
Right.
And yeah, you get baptized when you're 8 years old, because that's the point at which you start knowing good from evil, so your sins are all cleansed now. So if you die before then, by the way, you go right to the top. You don't even have to know the secret handshake. If you die before 8, you're good. You're going straight to the godhood. You get your robes, you get your wand, you get your tiara, I would imagine, or some kind of kingly hat, something to put on, and you just start pumping out if you're a woman, you start pumping out the spirit children.
Oh, great.
And if you're a guy, you do whatever it requires to get your woman to pump out spirit children, and you're on your way.
Wow. So, wait a minute.
Yeah.
There's a lot to digest there.
We got to
Yes,
go back.
there is.
You go first, and then because I have a question.
Okay. In all of that going on,
Yes.
Okay, I understand that they picked 8 because of 8 people, but does that also mean that the 8-year-old ate the apple, right? The fruit of the knowledge of good and evil? Is that how that works? Why do they think that 8-year-olds are accountable? What's I guess besides the ark, what's the rationale behind that?
You're looking for rationale and reason?
I said rationale, not religion. Not rational.
Somebody made it up. It sounded good to them, and they ran with it. That's religion. That's what people do.
I think it's...
Yeah, you know what? I think he wants us to kill the homosexuals. What do you think? Yeah, everybody? Yeah. Okay. God wants us to kill the homosexuals. This is how this stuff happens. It's just made up BS, right?
And then the rituals and the mysticism makes it special, and it's if you don't know why it's kind of mystical and you want to be a part of it. Is that
all of religion is really about having something that the other people don't have. Right. It's we get to leapfrog because we have this special connection to the guy up here, and he's going to give us the real info. So that everybody else is lagging behind and we get to run ahead because now we have the special information. Of course, that special information has been dragging down humanity for 3,000 years. And I'm about to do a Way of the Mister where I talk about how the progress we've made in the last 400 years really isn't progress. It's just tearing down the walls that religion has built up to keep us ignorant. I mean, that's really what it is. So, yeah, you've got to have something special that the other folks don't have that can clue people in to say, oh, gee, let's go over here because they got the thing that the other people don't have. That's what it's all about. And if you can make it, the more plausible I think you can make it sound, or the more interesting or special or magical, I think the better off you are. And Joseph was really good at that. He was kind of brilliant.
So here's a question about Joseph Smith. It was, the 1820s?
1820s is when he had his first vision, and 1830 was when the Book of Mormon was first published.
So you have the 1830s so you have this guy coming in with a religion that actually explicitly says that you will have lots of sex after you die. Is that what made it popular?
And for him before as well.
Yeah. And before, you can have as many wives as you want. They don't seem to be as prudish as the other religions at the time. And what was it, Victorian era, right?
Right.
So very prudish, very starchy collars and whatnot. And this guy is like, no, it's not all suffering and dying, and you get lots of sex after this is done. You learn our secret handshakes, which is mystical. Nobody else knows. This is just for you.
Right.
And then you become a god too. Was that what made it super palatable for the 19th century?
Yeah, I think one of the things that people don't know, and there's a fantastic book on this by Michael Quinn, who was one of the people excommunicated by the church in, I want to say, September of 1992. It's one of the things that pushed me out, because he's a great historian. He wrote a book called Mormonism in the Magic Worldview, where he talks a lot about early America and how people don't realize early America was completely unchurched. Mm-hmm. The Christians nowadays like to talk about this being a Christian nation and everything, but early America was a hodgepodge of weird stuff going on. You had the traditional religions coming over from Europe, but not a lot of people went to church regularly, and they had this great mix with kind of like a strange Christianity and some like mystical religious stuff, even voodoo and that kind of stuff. Joseph started out by telling people that he had a magic stone that could find buried treasure. In fact, he was imprisoned for that. Mm-hmm. And that is the same exact stone that he used later to put into a hat and he would look into the hat and get the translation for the Book of Mormon. That's how it was working. But he kind of tapped into that thing where people were kind of into the whole Christian thing because, yeah, we did come from Christian nations, but people didn't like Christian nations because the Christian nations they came from were very oppressive. And, you know, you look at our Bill of Rights and what you see there is a complete rejection of canon law and, you know, the early Protestants who were kind of doing the same exact thing. It was tyranny in the name of religion. These were theocracies over in Europe. So you had kind of the freedom here in America to invent, to take kind of what was there and add on to it. And, you know, it kind of went along with our scientific understanding of things. And Joseph was very much about the material world. And, you know, God has a body of flesh and bone. He's not some mystical spiritual apparition. He's not the God with the capital G. And it was a very enlightened kind of way to see traditional Christianity. And I think that's one of the ways, that's one of the things. Now that we know everything, it sounds more stupid.
It does,
he actually went the other way. But until we knew, for instance, that the Native Americans weren't Hebrews and, you know, all of that kind of stuff, that the Book of Abraham is not a translation from Father Abraham, but a common book of the dead.
Oh my God.
And before we knew all that stuff, it did seem kind of enlightened and an interesting take on it. And certainly if you were into swinging, you know, it was the religion to go with until the U.S. government shut him down on that front. But I think the theology is very appealing to people who are not traditionalists. And the irony to me now is Mormonism, what you said, Mormons are now so incredibly prudish.
Yeah.
They are the ultimate, you know, abstinence folks, and oh God, and the body is dirty and filthy, and sex is no and taboo, and, you know, God forbid you do anything but missionary position. They've completely gone the other way in an attempt kind of to run from that past that now doesn't look so good anymore.
Seriously, with the missionary position, though? That's it?
I'm sorry?
Is it seriously with the missionary position? That's it?
There are. I have read, when I was in the church, I read books, you know, or articles or stuff like that where, yeah, they're talking about, you know, any position other than missionary position or oral sex or anything like that is, you know, God's watching and he's kind of disgusted by that. He only likes the missionary position.
Okay. Speaking of missionary positions,
just good segue.
Speaking of missionary position, Mormon missions are a thing, and I know I've heard you talk about this a little bit. There's somewhat of a compulsion, not necessarily, I mean, obviously from the church, they always want you to go on missions, but it's also like, I guess you can call it Mormon culture.
Yeah.
Like, the families really, really push for that. And I was wondering if you had gone on a mission, and if so, how pushy your family was in making that decision for you and where you went and how that all happened.
Yeah, it is absolutely a cultural expectation. When you are a kid, you're taught to sing a song, oh, I hope they call me on a mission. When I'm a foot or two taller, you know, I can't remember the lyrics now. But this is ingrained in you from the time you can walk. My grandmother set up a missionary fund for me when I was 3 years old and would put money into it every month. And, you know, it's an absolute expectation that you go. Now, I wasn't really into the religion until I turned 17, and then I got really into it hardcore, and I was kind of a fanatic about the whole thing. And I was really looking forward to going on my mission. I actually served what they call a stake mission, which is a local mission where you go out with the full-time missionaries and stuff, and you teach with them and all that kind of stuff. And then I was called, when I say called, I mean you put in all your papers, and there is a lot of paperwork. You take a language test, you do all kinds of things, and then the prophet, you know, knows exactly, I think he has a Ouija ball or one of those magic 8 balls or something like that, and you get a place. And I was going to go to Recife, Brazil, which is right on the mouth of the Amazon. And I was, in fact, in the missionary training center for probably about 6 weeks, and I got a record contract offered to me at that same time. And it was to do a Mormon album. It was with the biggest Mormon record company at the time. And so I ended up saying, yeah, I think I'd rather do that. And I came home, and what I didn't realize is how absolutely ostracized I would be for coming home. Once you start to go on a mission and you decide not to and you come back, oh my gosh. The cold shoulder I got, the shunning, it was the great shunning of 1984, and I didn't get over that until the album came out. And then, of course, once the album comes out, everybody's like, "Oh, you're going to touch so many more people with this album than you would have going on the mission. This was a good choice," and blah 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 blah. Truly, you're following the Lord, you get it. But boy, it was taboo like nobody's business.
So wait a minute.
Friends. Kind of like, oh, I'm not talking with him anymore. I might as well have left the church. It was ridiculous.
So wait a minute, can we find this album online?
You cannot, thankfully.
Oh,
Thankfully, you cannot find this album anywhere.
Man.
In fact, I bought all of the remaining copies and burned them to the ground.
Did you really?
No, I didn't. But
see?
I don't think you can find it. If you want to try the Library of Congress, it's probably there somewhere. But
have you seen the Book of Mormon?
I have seen it twice, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. Is it
accurate though? There
are little things that they get wrong, and there's nothing really big or crucial that they get wrong, if I remember correctly. I'd have to see it again to really go through, but for the most part, it's pretty accurate. Yeah.
Do you know any Mormons now, or at least can you are there any Mormon reactions that you know of or have seen?
About the Book of Mormon play?
Yes.
The musical? Yes. I haven't. I know that the church was really smart about it, that they take ads out in the program.
Really?
When I saw it twice, there were ads in the program, and there were Mormon missionaries out front willing to talk to people. I mean, there's a kind of a coolness about that, where they're starting to get the PR going pretty good on that end. But
they know they're being mocked, right?
Yeah.
They do, but it's any press is good press, just so long as you spell my name right, kind of thing.
Can't fault them for that.
I think they were really smart about it, not to be jerks or they're getting sharp on that front, which makes them even a little more scary.
Because that's how it goes, though. You denigrate something, and that makes people want to see it even more, and then they would never get it out of their hair. Yeah, I think so. I mean, the play is such, or the musical is such that in the end, the message is fairly benign. Mm-hmm. From what I understand, the South Park guys aren't atheists. They're just, and they're fascinated with Mormonism, obviously, mm-hmm. all this stuff that they've done on South Park and with this musical. And it's easy to be fascinated by, because it's, the thing about Mormonism is it's a microcosm of all religion. I mean, right. we don't have documentation and news stories and everything, from the founding of Judaism or Christianity or Islam. But Joseph Smith had someone walking around writing down everything he said like he was God or the prophet or something like that. And it's such a well-documented religion. You can look at it and you can kind of lay it over every other religion, and you get to understand how religions come about. It's one charismatic guy, and he's just able to BS everybody better than anyone else ever has for maybe the last couple hundred years, and that was his gift. He could make stuff up on the fly. The Book of Abraham is the perfect example, because they got this papyrus from a guy traveling through selling Egyptian artifacts. He gets this papyrus and he says, this is not just any papyrus. This is the writings of Father Abraham, and I'm going to translate them. And of course, this is before the Rosetta Stone, so no one can say otherwise. And he does, and he makes this whole book of scripture. And years later, we find out that it was just a common funerary text, Book of the Dead kind of thing. It came from Pottery Barn.
The chutzpah.
The chutzpah.
To just tell people, things like this and to run with it. It's just amazing. And I suspect that's the way every religion came about in a kind of microcosmic way.
So here's a question. You want to go? Because I think we both are like bursting with questions.
No, go for it.
Okay, I was going to ask, so getting back to rituals, you know how the Hajj is going on right now. That's where every Muslim has to go to Mecca. Is it like that where every Mormon has to go to Salt Lake City once in their life? Do they have a program like that where you have to go?
We don't. There's nothing like that. I mean, it's kind of one of the reasons why they build temples everywhere on the planet, because they do want you to get to a temple. That's very important. So people do make kind of pilgrimages to the nearest temple, but there's no center of. Even though they believe that Mormons believe that the Garden of Eden was in Jackson County, Missouri.
How do they find
even
that
though they
out?
believe that, there's no kind of formal, pilgrimage to any site. It's just wherever you are, get to a temple.
So I know that you're an atheist now, clearly, and I wanted to ask two things. One, can you teach us the secret handshake so we too can get into heaven? And
Yes.
The second one was, how did you leave the Mormon Church, and how did that go for you?
Well, I was starting to become more and more, a critical thinker as I got out of my teens and 20s. And by the time I was 25, I started having some real serious doubts. And I kind of actually became an atheist before I left the Mormon Church. And I kind of thought that was okay because Mormonism, like I said, doesn't have a big G God, and atheism really only refers to the big G God. I mean, it can refer to all the little G gods as well, but in my thinking, I was kind of okay, and it just started to grate on me. People would say stupid things, they would write stupid things, and all of that kind of stuff, and then the big thing for me really was Mormonism excommunicated. They excommunicated 6 intellectuals and historians and feminists. And the historian bothered me a great deal because that's one of those things where if he's wrong, just show him where he's wrong. If you've got the documents, if you've got the facts on your side, you just show him where he's wrong, and any reasonable, rational person would say, "Oh, okay, I'll retract what I wrote," and blah 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 blah. And they couldn't. So they excommunicated with him, and that for me was a Galileo moment. I went, I don't want to be any part of this. This is just ridiculous. So I tenured my letter of resignation, which is what you do if you want your name formally removed. And usually when somebody does that, there's a church court, and they kind of question you to make sure this is really what you want. And for me, they just sent a letter back saying, "Okay, see ya," because I had been asking too many questions and bothering too many people for the last probably year and a half.
Wait.
So
it's
they
like buying
said,
a car?
don't let the door hit you on the tuchus on the way out.
What questions were you asking them that made them so uncomfortable?
Well, all kinds of questions. One of the big ones at the time, because remember, this really didn't happen until the early 90s when we started getting the DNA on the Native Americans, because, the Book of Mormon is... The entire religion of Mormonism is based on a series of empirical claims about who the Native Americans are and where they came from. And in the Book of Mormon, it says that they're actually Hebrews and that they came here from the old world and God brought them over. And then they got here and they were all, kind of good for a while. And then a bunch of them went sour. So God had to darken their skin too. That's how you get the Native Americans.
Like, obviously, right?
And... they lived, basically, Joseph didn't know archaeology. He didn't understand anthropology or anything like that. So he basically just transposed the old world culture of the Fertile Crescent onto the people here. Well, now we understand that if you don't have certain things in an area, wheats, you don't have draft animals, you don't move on from the Stone Age. You never move to the Middle Age. So he imposed a middle-aged cosmography here in the New World that just didn't fit. It doesn't fit with the archaeology. So there were no wheeled chariots. There were no steel swords here. Everything that we found out, Joseph was just wrong on everything. So it's a whole series of empirical claims. And I was asking about those. But the biggest one at the end for me was when the DNA became obvious that the Native Americans were not Hebrews, but North Asians who came over the land bridge, like scientists had been positing. That to me was a real big deal. And, they have all kinds of BS explanations for that now. Even though the Book of Mormon says everyone who was here was from this group, now it's, oh, really, the Book of Mormon people were a very little small group of people and we haven't found them yet. Of course, they're having battles where millions of people are dying. And it says that they filled the entire continents from the north to the south and from the east to the west. But of course now they're this tiny little group that we couldn't find. And the continents, both continents, have been pretty thoroughly examined.
Isn't that convenient?
It's just it got more and more ridiculous.
Isn't that convenient? So now we're almost out of time, but you gonna teach us that handshake? Are you gonna teach us the handshake?
Oh, the handshake. Okay. Well, basically, it's a. I'm gonna. Let's see. I got it. This is hard to do when you're backwards. So you clasp your pinky finger goes into pinky finger, and it's a normal handshake. So pinky finger into pinky finger, except for this finger goes onto this part of the wrist of the other person.
Are we doing it?
So pinky under pinky, and then wrist. First finger to first finger, and by the way, that's the sure sign of the cross, as they call it in Mormonism. Mormons believe that that Jesus had holes in here and he had holes in here.
Oh, okay.
He was nailed both ways. So that's it. And there are other things. When you're going through the veil, there are 5 points of fellowship. There's ear to mouth, hand to back, knee to knee, toe to toe, and the secret handshake.
That sounds sexy.
And those are the 5 points of fellowship, which is, by the way, 3 points more points of fellowship than any other deity. So that's a big plus if you're looking at Mormonism.
Say it one more time. Ear to ear.
Mouth to ear, hand to back, knee to knee, toe to toe, and you give the token of the Holy Melchizedek priesthood, I think it's called, I can't remember, which includes the true sign of the cross or whatever. I can't remember exactly what it's called now. And then you actually repeat this thing into the person's ear: health in the navel, marrow in the bone, strength in the loins and the sinews, power in the priesthood be upon me and upon my posterity throughout all time and through all whatever. I can't remember the whole thing. It's
Mama say, Mama sa, Mama kusa.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
So when you die and you go to be judged, you're judged by the Mormon Jesus, the Mormon God Elohim, and Joseph Smith. So he put himself on the council, it sounds like.
Yeah,
Of course he did.
You got to do what you can. He also got the best parking space, which really ticked off Jesus. Jesus is still really upset about that. But you got to hand it to Joseph, because he does drive an energy efficient vehicle, and he doesn't contribute in any way to our situation.
I do have one quick question for you, and this is, I don't know if you're going to be able to answer it, but do you find it offensive that Joseph Smith is claimed to have said that he did more for humanity than Jesus?
Oh, yeah.
Is that,
Well,
I mean...
I don't find it offensive. I don't care one way or the other.
Well, I guess I mean, like, do Mormons have a problem with that, or do they, like, how do they get around that sounding so pompous?
How do you reconcile that?
Yeah, it's funny because I was never really confronted with that. I knew of it, and it just never got me. I didn't feel bad about it. I didn't think it was pompous. I know Christians hated it and everything, but to me, the fact that he didn't create a religion that wreaked havoc on humanity for 2,000 years, I kind of got to give it to him. I think he did a better job than Jesus, because what Jesus created has kept us, it probably set us back 1,000 years. If you look at where humanity was and what we knew and understood, the Greeks and the Romans had the renal system figured out. We were this close to the germ theory of disease. And, we got set back 1,000 years. So I got to go with Joe on that one, because at least as stupid as the religion is, and it really is, and I'm not saying that I don't say that to be mean-spirited. It's just literally stupid. It's just wrong on every level. He got everything wrong, and it's just stupid. You know, to think that you can get a papyrus and translate it, and it's the writings of Father Abraham, when it's totally from the wrong era. It's not even from, you know, Abraham's time. It's 2,000 years later or whatever. And you know, they haven't gotten too much power. They helped here with Prop 8, which is, you know, I think actually helped push the matter into the courts a little earlier than it probably would have been, thank heavens. So I'm happy about that, and so much less damaging than Christianity, I gotta say.
So real quick, I wanted to give you a chance to tell everybody about your channel on YouTube. We've been putting it on the screen. Yeah. We haven't. I mean, you've mentioned it a few times. Can you tell us a little bit what you do with your Mr. Deity channel on YouTube?
For the last 8 years, I've been doing religious satire. I do a show called Mr. Deity, and I play God. And he is kind of a little bit more the Mormon God. He's not the God; he's just a God. And we kind of delve into religious matters through these little 3 to 5 minute skits. My semi-wife, Amy, plays Lucy or Lucifer on the show. One of my best friends plays Jesse or Jesus. We used to have Larry, he's gone now, but we have guests on all the time. We're hoping to have Bill Nye and Lawrence Krauss on pretty soon here. And we've had Richard Dawkins, and we just had Ryan Bell a few weeks ago, and some other prominent atheists and skeptics have been on the show, Michael Shermer and the likes. And I also do a show called The Way of the Mister, where it's a more direct, kind of focused thing on talking directly to camera and giving my point of view on things. And that was in response to Kirk Cameron and
Way of the Master,
Banana Man, who created The Way of the Master. By the way, if you're in a religion where you call the person you follow master, you might want to rethink that, because I think slavery is just wrong, period.
So where can people find you on the internets?
Just go to Mr. Deity, look at MrDeity.com, MrDeity.com, or go to YouTube and look up Mr. Deity, or iTunes as well. We put the show up there, and you can there are all kinds of links and connections from there that you can go to once you're in the YouTube videos or on my site.
Well, thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you. It's been a lot of fun.
I've always wanted to talk to God.
Yeah, me too. So see y'all next time.
It's not as stunning as you would think, huh?
It's
no,
awesome.
You're amazing.
You're amazing.
Oh,
thank you.
Awesome. Thanks everybody for joining us on this Road to Reason, the 21st century something.
I'm Tiffany.
I'm Stephanie.
See y'all next week.